an alternative to multi-factor authentication with a triple identity authentication scheme. The paper presents a triple identity authentication scheme within a dual password login authentication system. It aims to enhance account security by utilizing more identities for the login credentials and ensuring that these identifiers are not transmitted via the network or operated by users. The scheme defines identities for the username and login password, respectively, and verifies the identifiers at the username and password forms in succession. The dual password login authentication system involves 3 user login credentials: a username, a password, and a hash value. However, only one of these credentials is associated with the user's identity. To address this issue, the paper proposes a triple identity authentication scheme, which establishes identities for all login credentials of a user account and verifies them at all login points of the system. The key to the scheme is the use of a hash algorithm called the quasi-matrix password converter. This algorithm operates in the background as part of the system and generates concealed hash elements that are incommunicable, inaccessible, and independent of any personal information. These hash elements can be used to define unique and unforgeable identities for all login credentials of a user account. During registration, the system converts the login password into an authentication password using the quasi-matrix password converter. For verification at the password form, the system selects some hash elements to define an identifier and binds it to the login password entered through a subscribed smartphone. For verification at the username form, the user generates a unique username or directly converts their email address or phone number with the hash algorithm to create a personalized username converter. The system then selects some hash elements from the UN converter to define an identifier and binds it to the personalized username entered through a subscribed smartphone. The triple identity authentication scheme ensures that all login points of the system are well protected, and the system-generated LP and UN identifiers do not need to be transmitted via the network and cannot be accepted by the LP and UN forms because they contain prohibited characters. Here is the combined summary of pages 3 and 4 of the research paper. The proposed dual password login authentication system enables users to create personalized usernames and login passwords, which are then associated with unique identifiers generated using hash elements. During registration, the system collects user information, including phone number, International Mobile Equipment Identity (IMEI), and International Mobile Subscription Identity (ISMI) numbers. The user can create a unique username or directly convert their email address or phone number using the hash algorithm. The system then associates the hash elements with the username and generates a UN identifier. The system also generates a quasi-matrix password converter, which defines the identity of the login password. The user can determine the length and characters of the login password, and the system selects hash elements to define the LP identifier. The system associates the LP identifier with the combination of the login password and IMEI and IMSI numbers. During verification, the system checks the database for a matching UN identifier when the user accesses the username page. If the access is granted, the system then checks for a matching LP identifier when the user inputs the login password. Finally, the system verifies the generated authentication password to ensure it matches the combination of IMEI and IMSI numbers of the subscribed smartphone. The proposed system aims to provide triple identity authentication, ensuring that login and authentication processes can be achieved on the legitimate user's device. The system exploits the uniqueness of each subscribed smartphone's IMEI and IMSI numbers to authenticate authorized login attempts, eliminating the need for third-party services. The paper highlights the importance of multi-factor authentication in ensuring the security of login and authentication processes. The authors also reference various studies and guidelines on multi-factor authentication, digital identity, and password generation, emphasizing the need for a secure and user-friendly authentication mechanism. The proposed system addresses the challenges of SIM swapping and MFA fatigue, providing a systematic solution to login and authentication security problems.